tonight. The family in this soap opera is a hot mess, and it's hard to keep up without a program. So to simplify, Chanel and Cartier are sisters. Chanel is married to Larson. Cartier is married to Buff. Their mother, Lois, is married to Private Dick Marlowe Phillips. And because this is a soap opera, babies age at the rate of a year a month until they're 20 years old, at which time they age at a normal rate. 6 years ago, Cartier gave birth to twins, Romeo and Juliet, who are now in their 20s. Larson and Cartier had an affair 3.5 years ago. Cartier became pregnant and led Larson to believe that the child Dior was his. However, Larson recently discovered he's not Dior's baby daddy. Dior is now in her 20s. Chanel and Larson's baby, Joby, who was born 14 months ago, is 14 years old. Amazing. This is the 4th anniversary episode of Debauchery, and tonight we'll stray from the normal soap opera format to bring you a retrospective of the past 4 years. Debauchery initially began with a family matriarch, Lois Lane, her daughters Chanel and Cartier, and their husbands, Larson Grant and Buff Devine. We've come a long way, baby. Oh yeah, every step of the way. And over the years, this family has expanded, it's grown, and many actors and some of the audience members have even appeared as guest stars. Who knows what will happen at Debauchery? And members of this family have experienced pregnancy, deceit, abandonment, incarceration, amnesia, embezzlement, celibacy, and infidelity. Not to mention blackmail, which is my favorite. They are disillusioned, distracted, and dysfunctional. And what could be more delicious? Won't you join us for our first anniversary episode of Debauchery?
What happened? It's me. Hi! I'm Mandy Zirkenbach. Thank you, Sue I play Chanel Grant, the nice, sweet, kind, loving wife and mother.
Oh, yeah?
Who is apparently surprised.
Always.
Well, that wasn't always the case.
Which just goes to prove, to quote Lois, a leopard can change its stripes.
Oh, what a stupid analogy.
It's gonna be that kind of night. Just get ready.
Oh, I'm Jessica Bourgeois, who plays Cartier Devine, the devious, hateful, scheming wife and daughter. Oh, there I am.
Cartier is an absolute bitch.
But what would be a soap opera without conflict? Somebody's got to keep the pot stirred.
Cartier does do an excellent job of causing chaos at every opportunity.
It's what she lives for.
Hey, I'm Matthew Michael, who plays Buff Devine. Cartier's. I'll pay you later. I am Cartier's husband, who is the recipient of many of her schemes and much of her madness.
That's because Buff is such a wuss.
What? No, he is not. Buff is a self-made billionaire. Ooh, I didn't know I was that rich. And a fabulous father, that I knew. Despite the manner in which Cartier treats him, Buff truly adores her.
Now,
loves her. That loves and adores.
Some of you in the audience have been with us since the very beginning. Some of you joined us along our journey. But do not think we don't realize that because of our audience's support, we are still growing strong. Thank
You know, I do have to say, being part of Debauchery has been quite an adventure. Now, you're about to experience... Why are you laughing at me? It is a pretty good picture. You see that wedding ring? I lost that on a float during Orpheus. I threw it off. Anyway, just saying, it's pertinent. So you're about to experience highlights of the last 4 years. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we?
In May 2010, Debauchery's playwright Pat Bourgeois was approached by Le Chatenois, Barbara Motley, and Southern Reps visiting director Mark Rouvier. He plays Toke. They indicated that Le Chat and Southern Rep would like to jointly produce a soap opera like none other, and asked Pat to write it.
On Wednesday, July 14th, 2010, at Le Chatenois, the three of us appeared at the very first episode of Debauchery. The part of Chanel's husband, Larson, and the role of matriarch Lois had not yet been permanently cast. Gary Rucker agreed to play Larson for the first episode.
And the part of Lois was played...
Gary Rucker agreed.
Yeah, I heard movement, and the part of Lois was played by...
I didn't have to walk to my paper.
Right. Can I go on now? All right. Was played by none other than Sean Patterson. Sean has recently been added to the Debauchery family as Hugh Jackman. Now don't be confused. He didn't just host the Tony Awards. He's not the Hugh Jackman.
Obviously. I agreed to fill in as Lois, but couldn't take the part permanently because I was living in New York.
You were moving to New York.
I was moving to New York. I was. And I was living in New York and was in New Orleans for a short period of time that summer.
Okay.
Just read the script.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can leave now, Sean.
Seriously, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll be back.
Well, during that episode, Chanel discussed her previous marriages with her husband, Larson. She'd been married to Alfredo, who died of syphilis, Nick, who disappeared on their honeymoon in Italy, Walter, who was crushed by a slot machine in Las Vegas, I know, right? Douglas, who was shot in the heart 3 times, but lived, Ruben, who was a schizophrenic, I have a type, Marty, who left her handcuffed to a bed in the woods, C-type, and Lucas, a serial killer with a heart of gold who rescued her.
I mean, damn, that's a lot of husbands. Now, you are the Susan Lucci of Debauchery.
This is a soap opera, that's to be expected. Oh, and I forgot one husband, Scoot McCreaton, who lost his penis in a law firm accident. More about Scoot later.
I forgot about the...
I know. Hey! Several years before, Cartier hit Buck with a car on Airline Highway, which caused his blindness and his impotency.
That's good stuff.
Cartier agreed to settle with Buck, then marry him in order to get the settlement money back. What? That surprises you? Buck was also suffering from amnesia. His sight was restored, but not his memory or his manhood. It was so sad. Cartier convinced Buck that they had sex all the time, but nothing could be further from the truth.
Now, with his settlement money, Buck purchased the blue plastic tarp roof company just days before. Let's just say Buff went from being barely having the pot to piss in to becoming wealthy. Buff possessed business savvy and continued to invest in various industries. His net worth went from wealthy to extremely wealthy.
So, opportunistic Cartier stayed and married him. Of course she did. Buff's inability to have sex was no problem. Cartier satisfied her urges elsewhere. Don't blame Cartier. She had to because Buff really wanted children. So she was forced to screw around in order to get pregnant. It was all for him. Article.
Sure it was.
Right. So watching Chanel stroke a... Oh, I do remember this moment. Watching Chanel stroke a cucumber, Buff's memory temporarily returned.
That happened.
It did. I discovered it on stage when it happened. He remembered that he'd been married to Chanel when his name was Nick. He was kidnapped in Italy by a band of gypsies while he and Chanel were on their honeymoon. Oh, wow.
That's me with the sword thing, the scimitar or whatever it's called. Yeah.
I think I'm on the other side of that picture. Anyway, due to a trapeze accident, he'd suffered from a brain injury. Because of the plastic surgery as a result of the accident, Buff no longer looked like the Nick that Chanel remembered.
Yeah, Chanel proclaimed that. I need a minute. I'm moving on to that one. Chanel proclaimed that she never stopped loving Nick. They planned to divorce their spouses and remarry, and thus began Debauchery, New Orleans' only live, ongoing soap opera. Hey, I have the hair that I wore in the first episode. Look, even after a baby, it still fits.
In the second episode, Kyle was cast as family matriarch Lois Lane, and the rest is history.
He is me. Now, Lois was a long. I don't know how to do this and not talk like
I
that.
know. This is difficult for us to do any of this and not use our character voices stuff.
So, Lois was a long-suffering lady. Her husband, Larry Lane, disappeared when her daughters were young. As adults, her daughters Chanel and Cartier were status climbers and were both embarrassed by Lois because she was from the parish. Now, Lois decided, I can't do this, I'm sorry, I need something. Now that's better. Lois decided it was time to find a man, so she became a cougaran. And she auditioned for the New Orleans Sensations, wearing a football helmet so she would be noticed. I love that blouse. And to get noticed, she did. Sports reporter Jim Henson told Angela Hill about Lois, and Angela offered Lois a 5-minute segment on Fridays, and it was called Intercourse with Lois, which was a huge success. And Chanel and Cartier, they were horrified.
Yes.
A permanent Larson had not yet been cast, so P.J. McKinney stepped in as Larson in the second episode, which I think was the weirdest episode we've ever had. However, Sean Glazebrook was permanently cast as Larson Grant by the third episode.
We've been waiting for it.
There it is. Larson told Cartier that he and Chanel only made love annually on the 4th of July. Poor Larson, who suffers from excessive...
Yeah, all together now.
Cartier decided to seduce him because he was easy pickings.
That's fantastic.
Honestly, Larson didn't put up much of a fight. I mean, look at Cartier.
As a result of her infidelity, Cartier got pregnant, very, 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 very pregnant. The storyline was the result of me becoming pregnant in real life, which worked out perfectly in the soap opera, considering Cartier was having an affair with her brother-in-law, Larson. Oh, God.
Chanel and Buff's plan to divorce their spouses was put on hold, partially because of Cartier's pregnancy, and partially because Buff wasn't in his right mind. Oh. Well, it's my beard. So, and his magic wand was still on the fritz. Well, Buff's brain injury caused him to spew whatever came into his head. Oh, those days. Mostly nonsense and often sex-related. He had no filter and no idea what the hell he was saying. And this caused a huge problem when Cartier attempted to get her unborn child into Regina Franklinton's exceptionally gifted and affluent academy. Regina I can't even say her name. Regina Franklinton was played by Leslie Castet.
Cartier intended to board the child even though she lived a few blocks away from the school, because who wants to deal with children? Regina was appalled by Cartier's lack of maternal feelings and was extremely concerned about Buff's ridiculous, inappropriate behavior. She refused to admit that the child because Cartier and Buff were not suitable parents. However, she promised to introduce Brad and Angelina. That's right. Plus, monetary bribery did the trick. So much for ethics, Regina.
The Cartier pre-planned the lives of her older children, the twins, Romeo, played by James Bartell, and Juliet, played by Ashley Record Santos. The twins.
I think they borrowed that top from Lois.
Yeah, I think so. Buff never questioned the paternity of the twins, which explains a lot about how oblivious Buff is. Cartier intended that wild child Juliet marry Dr. Hawthorne Alexander Grisham, who made Juliet dress as Nancy Reagan before sex in order to satisfy his Republican obsession. Marrying the doctor wasn't a consideration where registered Democrat Juliet was concerned. Cartier's selected society darling, Bootsy Brinkley, played by Kyra Miller, for her gay son Romeo. Unfortunately, that didn't work out because, unbeknownst to Cartier, Bootsy Brinkley was a lesbian.
Romeo planned to marry his lover, Ralph, who we heard about but didn't actually see at that time. Well, because Cartier forbid it, Chanel defied her and created a fabulous wedding for Romeo and Ralph at the country club, complete with plumes, peacock feathers, and gallons of rhinestones.
Much to Cartier's dismay, Romeo and Ralph intended to open a gay bar in San Francisco with a drag show. Sissy that walk.
Baloney!
Oh, wait, what? Oh, shoot, that's still me. I didn't know. I didn't highlight it. Cartier was not the least bit amused about the wedding or the gay bar, so she took matters into her own hands. Cartier paid Ralph off the night before the wedding, and he disappeared. $3 million richer. Poor Romeo was broken-hearted.
Cartier's best friend, Taffeta, international supermodel, played by Carrie Taylor. Speaks with a Russian accent, but she's really Crystal Robichaud from Violet, Louisiana. In her first debauchery appearance, Taffeta was bald. Ironically, Taffeta, international supermodel's bare head, became the rage and the latest trend. Women worldwide followed suit. Taffeta indicated that Mr. Mallory, hairdresser to the stars, played by Brian Peterson, now known as Brooklyn Schaefer, was responsible for polyurethaning her hair into beaks, which had to be chainsawed off. Instead of That's amazing. Instead of polyurethaning, I said polyurinating, which was the beginning of the larcenism. Long and storied history.
Yeah, that was it. Taffeta had also accused Mr. Mallory of cutting Cartier's brake line, which caused an accident. Consequently, Cartier delivered the twins while in a coma. Mr. Mallory... Coma birds. What are you gonna do? Mr. Mallory was accused of attempted murder and criminal mischief, found guilty, and was serving his sentence in Angola.
Mr. Mallory escaped in order to prove his innocence. He pleaded with Cartier to convince Taffeta to tell the truth. While holding them hostage with a blow dryer, Mr. Mallory forced Cartier to tell, what did he do? Mr. Mallory forced Cartier to tell Larson and Lois how she conceived the twins.
Oh, yes. Mr. Mallory doesn't swim in the lady pool. Cartier reluctantly admitted that she paid Mr. Mallory for his sperm and used a turkey baster in hopes of conceiving. Mr. Mallory had DNA tests which revealed that he was Juliet's father. Romeo's father could be one of 27 men. Was a very famous actor, Schuyler, who was the person who actually cut Cartier's brake lines. Yes, and screwed up Taffeta's hair.
Shortly thereafter, well-loved movie star Schuyler was arrested in California as a serial killer. Yes. He admitted to his California murders and confessed to cutting Cartier's brake line, polyurinating Taffeta's hair in New Orleans.
Turn that page. When Mr. Mallory was cleared of the crimes, he not only set up a trust fund for Juliet, but he set up one for Romeo too. Mr. Mallory hired both of them to create and name makeup colors for his cosmetic line, which ultimately became a huge international hit. Mr. Mallory promised Cartier that he'd never reveal the manner in which Romeo and Juliet were conceived or that he was Juliet's father.
After having disappeared 15 years before, Larson's brother Toke, played by Marc Routhier, came for a visit but decided to stay for a while. Toke was a blast from the past with the 1960s mentality. He believed in peace, love, and rock and roll, dude.
Toke! See the resemblance. Toke had been living in a commune, getting in touch with nature, living off the land, and growing and selling marijuana. Having cooked for the commune, Toke had become quite a chef. His brownies with a touch of marijuana were to die for.
God, Lois could not get enough of Toke's special brownies, huh?
At that time, Cartier owned a restaurant called Divine. After tasting Toke's amazing vegetarian creation, she offered him a partnership in her restaurant. Always scheming, Cartier anticipated that between the culinary talent Toke possessed and Cartier's business knowledge, she could make a ton of money and a huge name for herself.
That Toke is one righteous dude. Toke met and fell hard for Taffeta, international supermodel. Despite the fact they were polar opposites, apparently the feeling was mutual. Their relationship was often in turmoil, on again, off again, but make-up sex is amazing! There it is.
Now, Juliet brought her lover Ronaldo Santino and his adorable dog Chi-Chi home to meet the family. Chi-Chi. Needless to say, Cartier was less than thrilled, especially when Ronaldo said that he was an actor, which is lower than the pond scum where Cartier is concerned. However, when Juliet related that Ronaldo was a Latin lover movie star who earned $20 million a movie, Cartier had an instant change of heart.
Well, Chanel yearned to be with Buff, who was rarely lucid, so seldom remembered that they were in love. Because she now knew that Buff was impotent, Chanel began to suspect that Cartier and Larson were having an affair, which would make divorcing Larson much easier.
While Buff was coherent, Chanel convinced him to hire Private Dick Marlowe Phillips, played by Michael P. Sullivan, to confirm her suspicions.
Marlowe initially appeared to be a bumbling idiot, which he's not. Part of that perception was due to his attraction to Lois. He was so mesmerized by Lois that he failed to notice that Cartier and Larson were blatantly having an affair. Marlowe reported to Chanel that Larson was innocent of indiscretion.
Lois fell in love with Marlowe hard. Marlowe proposed marriage. However, Lois realized that she was still married to Larry Lane, who disappeared years before. Larry Lane was played by Jason Kirkpatrick. Marlowe conducted an investigation and discovered that Larry hadn't run away. He had been placed in the witness protection program due to something he witnessed at work. Marlowe's government sources disclosed that the threat to Larry came from the Cajun Mafia, but they no longer existed.
Marlowe found Larry, who lived in Utah, had 4 wives and a gaggle of kids. Instead of granting Lois a divorce, Larry returned with Marlowe and attempted to woo Lois back.
Larry wanted her for his number 6 sister wife. Lois was torn between Larry, the first man she ever loved, and Marlowe, who treated her like a queen. Lois had a difficult decision to make, but chose to chose to take both relationships slowly.
Chanel's best friend, Kiki, played by Tari Hahn, flew in to announce her marriage to Lord Charles George William Cambridge V, 50th in line for the throne. The Lord had more money and property in Europe than the Catholic Church. In addition, Lord Cambridge was as old as dirt. Kiki felt it was the perfect way to acquire enormous wealth in a very short period of time. She bragged that the Lord was so old she didn't have to do him. All she had to do was show him.
I don't remember that. While his affair with Cartier was exciting, Larson felt tremendous guilt for deceiving Chanel and impregnating Chanel's sister. He'd be the baby's daddy and uncle. That's so Chinatown.
Ferdinand Cartier felt no guilt at all. However, she was rapidly losing interest in Larson, so she dumped him.
Chanel realized that the majority of the time Buff had no memory of their past. As a result of watching Game of Thrones, you know where it's going, Chanel began fantasizing about snarky dwarf Tyrion Lannister, which caused a turnaround in her love life with Larson. All of it.
Cartier was arrested for being the mastermind behind a society matron shoplifting ring. Consequently, she gave birth to her daughter Dior while in prison. This happened before Orange is the New Black became trendy. I'm just saying.
It's actually a spin-off of Debauchery.
It was ultimately determined that Butsy Brinkley, who Cartier selected to marry Romeo, was behind the shoplifting ring. Cartier was released and Butsy was incarcerated. However, Butsy escaped from prison during a thunderstorm. It is Butsy, right? Butsy. I can't. I'm on this stage. It's coming. She escaped from prison during a thunderstorm and was struck by lightning 5 times. It's exciting. All that remained of her was a pair of handcuffs, her long blonde hair with dark roots. That's gruesome.
And that was a recap of year 1 of Debauchery.
That was all year 1?
Year 1.
What?
After 12 years in existence, Barbara Motley decided to close the Chat Noir. The Southern Rep solely took over the production of Debauchery. On June 29, 2011, the Debauchery family appeared on Southern Rep stage for the first time.
As you've just experienced, life-changing events happened in the Debauchery family during the first year. Life-changing events also happened to members of the cast in real life.
On October 16, 2010, I married the real love of my life. Who writes this shit? I married the real love of my life, Matthew Michael.
What's great is if I ever forget my anniversary, I can always look at the Debauchery script. And I was not suffering from a brain injury when I said I do to men.
Don't touch me.
On July 8, 2011, days before Debauchery's first anniversary, I gave birth to my daughter Vivian.
That's not actually. Is it stand-in?
That is it.
Okay. You're understood.
Right.
Okay. At the start of our second year, Lois still hadn't decided between Marlo and Larry. She spent much time attempting to prevent Larry from physically harming Marlo. He's a brute. He's a brute.
It didn't help that Chanel and Cartier wanted nothing to do with Larry. Cartier despised Marlo, but detested Larry even more. Undeterred by his daughter's indifference, Larry was determined to win Lois back. In an attempt to punch Marlo, Larry hit Buff instead.
The violence.
That's a good shot. Michael's face. Why do you find that funny?
It's hilarious!
Being pummeled by Larry caused Buff's condition to worsen. No idea what's going on there. I don't know. Anyway, Buff made absolutely no sense most of the time, but had moments of clarity. He announced to the family that his name was Nick and he was married to Chanel. Of course, Chanel was shocked and told Larry to hit him again. Thankfully, no one in the family believed Buff.
That's when Larson found a brain facility in France where he took his best friend Buff to have his brain unscrambled. All of Buff's memories were removed, and only his good memories since he married Cartier were returned to his brain. He had no idea of being Nick, loving Chanel, or having been impotent.
Having his brain unscrambled caused Buff's impotency to completely disappear. That certainly put a cramp in Cartier's style, temporarily. And so did having the baby Dior, played by Robin Baudier. Cartier wanted as little to do with Dior as possible.
I had no problems with that door. Cartier, Buff, and Dior. What a lovely family, right?
Hey, yeah, come on.
Don't be fooled. Looks can be deceiving. Dior, sweet, smart, loving child who's born into an extremely wealthy family. Sounds ideal, doesn't it?
Yeah. But Cartier was from hell!
She made Cruella de Vil seem like Mary Poppins. However, Buff adored Dior.
I did. Let's see. Now that his brain was functioning, Buff refused to let Dior board at Regina Franklinton School. To ensure that Dior was raised with as much love as possible, he ultimately allowed Chanel and Larson to raise her. He knew they'd do a good job because they raised his twins, Romeo and Juliet. Buff had no clue that he was not the father of Dior or the twins.
Lady Kiki Cambridge returned to acquire a case of Viagra.
And it was the 4th of July.
Yes. The Lord's children intended to have her marry Janelle due to Kiki and the Lord's failure to consummate it. Kiki had no intention to give up the financial security the Lord could offer. She planned not only to consummate her marriage with the help of Viagra, but to videotape the event as evidence of consummation.
But Kiki, being Kiki, couldn't pass up the opportunity to attempt to seduce Buff, Larson, and even Marlowe.
Well, Chanel hired Dr. Peter Studley. Yes, indeed. A New York psychiatrist to help her get a grip on her life. Peter Studley was played by... He was played by Garrett Prejean, who was well equipped for the role. Peter pretended to be an actor friend Chanel met in Italy, so the family wouldn't realize he was really a shrink. Peter not only charmed the family, but caused sexual hormones to activate in the women.
Now,
Is that the song?
That is the song.
I'll let you take that in first. All right, Lois's sister, Mitzi, took a long road trip from the parish for a visit. Mitzi complained about the lack of prospective husband material in the parish and was hot to trot for Peter Studley and Marlowe. Even though Lois hadn't yet decided between Marlowe and her long-lost husband Larry, she wasn't willing to give Marlowe to her sister.
With the assistance of Peter Studley and the rejection by Buff since he had his brain unscrambled, Chanel came to realize the amount of love she had for Larson. Her sexual fantasies of Tyrion Lannister and Dr. Peter Studley contributed to Chanel's explosive true reconciliation with Larson. Cartier was outraged by Chanel's incredible happiness. I'm a talented lover.
Chanel because there didn't seem to be anything Cartier could not do. Chanel didn't even attempt to compete. Well, oh gosh, I'm dying. While both sisters had previously found Lois a major embarrassment, Chanel had softened her options with Lois, which really pissed Cartier off. Woo!
Dior learned an awful lot very rapidly being around the family. She was far wiser than her years. Dior was treated horribly by her hateful nanny Jolinda, played by Liz Gore. So Dior plotted to have her fired. However, her efforts did not work. And one time backstage, she pulled one of her legs off. It was an accident.
And it was hilarious.
Jolinda was a former hoe. Reading. Turned dominatrix. Turned nanny. You know how that goes. Who Cartier met. It is, right? Who Cartier met while she was incarcerated. Jolinda attempted to seduce Larson, but her efforts were fruitless. Jolinda didn't last very long after that.
Buff.
Witness my horror.
What am I doing in the background?
Dancing.
I'm dancing?
No one ever knows.
Anyway, it happens. Buff, now mentally in top form, despite the picture, exploded when he discovered that Cartier had stolen $35 million from his corporate accounts to fund the opening of 5 new vegetarian restaurants. That's my angry face.
Cartier refused to repay Larson the $35 million she stole from Buff's corporate accounts. However how horrible. Cartier was despicable.
Chanel was pathetic.
Cartier was selfish.
Chanel was useless.
Cartier was disgraceful.
Well played. Buff insisted on repayment. In the interim, he took Cartier's credit cards away. In order to escape her predicament, Cartier took a nap, during which her life was presented to her in a dream. Past, present, and future.
The dream made it evident that if Cartier did not change her evil ways, her life would unravel, leaving her without family or friends, rotting away in a jail cell without the benefits of makeup, jewelry, or Botox. Unlike Ebenezer Scrooge, the dream had absolutely no effect on Cartier.
Larry Lane disappeared again. Marlowe went in search of him. However, Marlowe returned to New Orleans with Larry's son, Bruiser, played by Will Schneider. Larry had 15 or 16 children, not counting Chanel and Cartier. Bruiser was Larry's only son.
Bruiser was a charismatic. Bruiser was a charismatic hunk of a man who was thrilled to meet his half-sisters. Cartier, I guess I was there. Cartier wanted no part of bonding with Bruiser. Gross. Just a rattle.
Yeah, look, you were there.
Oh, I was. Just to rattle Cartier's chain, Bruiser related that Bravo was filming a series about Larry, his wives, and all of his children, including Chanel and Cartier. Outraged, Cartier spun out of control and exploded.
Buff had enough of Cartier and decided to divorce her, knowing that the divorce would get nasty and Buff would discover Larson's paternity of Dior. Larson attempted to talk Buff out of ending his marriage to Cartier to no avail.
Buff introduced his sultry new assistant, Bernsey, to the family. Bernsey. Bernsey was played by Desiree Bacal.
Cartier instantly detested Bernsey and insisted that Buff fire her instead. Buff announced that he planned to divorce Cartier, marry Bernsey, and acquire sole custody of Dior.
Little Dior growing up.
He's so cute.
But because children creeped Bernsey out and because she had no intention of becoming a full-time mother, Bernsey changed her mind about marrying Buff, but chose to remain his assistant. Cartier used Buff's indiscretion with Bernsey to force him to transfer $12 million into her account and restore access to her credit cards.
Just a couple.
You shop at Sears.
He's all the way.
When Buff indicated that Dior would be 18 in 10 months, Bernsey set her sights on Buff again. However, their affair did not last, but their working relationship did.
Cartier introduced the family.
That is.
What a babe. Cartier introduced the family to her assistant, Crispin Ashpole. That's Ashpole, not asshole. A-S-H-P-O-L-E.
A to the S to the H to the
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. He was better known as Crispy, who was played by Jason George. Crispy was wickedly sarcastic, and yet surprisingly humble at times. Bernsey was a no-nonsense, efficient, confident, and very sexy. Crispy and Bernsey could not stand one another. Oh yeah.
Cartier and Toke's gourmet vegetarian restaurants were such a huge success that Cartier continued opening more restaurants. Cartier detested Toke, but had to admit that he was responsible for the recognition the restaurants received. Two of the restaurants owned by Cartier and Toke, one in Dallas and one in Orlando, burned to the ground on the same day. Possibly as a result of arson. It's like terror.
Toke hired Private Dick Marlowe Phillips to assist in the investigation and hopefully clear Cartier as a suspect. Cartier denied any involvement in the fires, despite the fact that the restaurants in question were not making any money. A word to the wise, opening a vegetarian restaurant in the heart of Meat-Eating, Texas, really, really stupid.
Buff was astounded because Cartier had bragged about how fabulous all of her restaurants were doing. And Cartier convinced Marlowe that she did not have to hire anyone to torch her restaurants. For once, Cartier was honest. In Orlando, for once. In Orlando, a competitor dressed as Goofy set fire to the restaurant next door to Cartier's restaurant, but Divine went up in smoke too. The fire at the Dallas restaurant was due to faulty wiring.
She now realized that her family was again in crisis, so she requested the aid of her shrink, Dr. Peter Studley.
Yeah, right?
Chanel attempted to seduce Peter, but he indicated it would be unethical. So Chanel was left with the memory of their one and only kiss that she initiated. Ah, Peter.
He's cracking his own ass.
If yours was like that, wouldn't you grab it too?
Members of Chanel's family weren't Peter's clients. He seduced Cartier, who felt having Peter as a friend with benefits would improve her marriage to Buff. Then Peter seduced Buff's... that was real. Then Peter seduced Buff's super sultry assistant, Bernsey, and then just for fun, Peter seduced Cartier's male assistant, Crispy.
That Peter Studley knows things. How the hell does he do it? He should give lessons to the males in the cast.
Marlowe doesn't need lessons in how to attract women. He's only got eyes for Lois.
And Marlowe's heart. Fortunately, Peter was the one who discovered how Lois could divorce her husband, Larry, without his consent, and marry her beloved Marlowe.
Buff decided to break off his relationship with Bernsey and focus on his marriage to Cartier.
Hello. Doesn't anyone want to hear from me?
Not yet, Robin.
Cartier treated the family to an exotic tropical vacation.
God, that's...
Very relaxing, right? Not so much! Cartier was livid to discover that Lois and Marlowe and Chanel and Larson were having non-stop sex. No, but separately. Evidently, Cartier's ecstasy, resulting from her amazingly sizzlingly hot one-night stand with Peter Studley, had worn off.
may speak. Robin.
Gee, thanks. Finally. Cartier's status as the mother of all bitches returned with a vengeance. Buff was upset with Cartier for her lack of interest in Dior. That's me. So Buff grew a huge pair of testicles. Buff got control, knowing that he'd ultimately pay dearly in the future, much to Dior's delight. When the family rallied and spent the remainder of the trip spoiling her rotten when they were not satisfied with their carnal desires. That sentence makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite Lois outfit.
I was fine. That little mess I could.
On June 27th, 2012, the entire Debauchery family and many friends gathered for Lois and Marlowe's wedding. To highlight the chaos that ensued, Lady Kiki Cambridge was newly divorced and hot to trot. She did present the video of her consummating her marriage to the Lord to his family. Shocked, the family convinced the Lord to divorce her in fear that sex with Kiki would kill the Lord. But Kiki got a humongous settlement.
Aunt Mitzi drove all the way from the parish to attend her sister's wedding.
Juliet! Juliet and Ronaldo fought, then reconciled, as did Toke and Taffeta International Supermodel. In this episode, Taffeta was played by Southern Reps Artistic Director A. May Hayes. The voice.
You get to use a headshot?
Peter Studley made plans to seduce Bernsey, Cartier, Crispy, Kiki, and Rodeo. He was gently rejected by Juliet and ball-bustingly shot down by Taffeta. Sorry.
Dior got quite an education while listening to the adult conversations. In typical soap opera fashion, Kiki and Taffeta had a wig-pulling bitch fight before kissing and making up.
Toke insisted that Cartier buy him out of the Divine restaurants. Cartier attempted to sabotage Lois and Marlowe's wedding by informing her father, Larry Lane.
In the middle of the wedding ceremony, Larry chased poor little Marlowe around the venue with murder in mind. Lois convinced Larry that she had divorced him and that their life together was really, truly over. I swear to God.
Heartbroken, Larry returned to Utah to his then 5 wives, 17 children, and 2 grandchildren. With the exception of Bruiser, all girls. Finally, Toke officiated as Lois and Marlowe exchanged their vows, much to the chagrin of Cartier. Despite the pandemonium that ensued, it was a beautiful wedding.
And Lois and Marlowe lived happily ever after. Well, sort of kind.
Larson's father, Graham Bradley Grant IV, paid an unexpected visit. Graham was played by Fred Nuccio. Graham explained that Larson's mother, Magenta, had become an extreme hoarder. He couldn't take it anymore. Plus, Graham and Magenta hadn't had sex since Bill Clinton was in office. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. It was probably when George W. was in office. Graham announced that he planned to divorce Magenta and move in with Larson and Chanel.
No.
Lois and Marlowe returned from their honeymoon in Disney World. I love that time. During that year, Larson and Buff merged their companies. Cartier was aghast that Larson and Buff had hired Marlowe as the head of their security departments. To increase her horrid mood, Cartier was informed that Lois's segment on Channel 4, Intercourse with Lois, would now run 5 days a week and go into syndication nationwide. Cartier was extremely enraged regarding Marlowe's proclamation that Lois and Marlowe bought the mansion next door to hers.
Dior was an absolutely delightful child, but Cartier wanted very little to do with her. Cartier belittled her at every opportunity, no pun intended. Nothing Dior did met with Cartier's approval. The family was infuriated with Cartier's attitude, and that Cartier berated Dior for her failure to physically grow.
After buying Toke out of the Divine restaurants, Cartier decided to forego the hippy-dippy vegetarian-only theme and include massive slabs of meat in her restaurants. I like that sentence, massive slab. Anyway, and speaking of meat, I don't know, Crispy caught Cartier playing hide the sausage with Peter Studley and announced his discovery to the family.
Yes.
And that concluded Debauchery's second year. Off stage during that year, something very unexpected happened. After 25 years, it can now place Southern Rep lost its lease.
Mid-City Theater offered to host Debauchery. Southern Rep agreed and continued to produce the soap opera that just wouldn't die.
Thank goodness, huh? It was on April 18, 2012, Debauchery premiered at Mid-City Theatre. Push.
Push.
Oh, don't break it. Turn it. There you go.
While all this has been very informative, I've been waiting backstage behind this door forever.
It's not time for you yet. We just finished the episode through July 2012. You weren't even part of the family back then. You were still living in New York.
Yes.
It looks cold.
Somebody's been on Facebook. Yeah, well, can't I just sit out here until Hugh Jackman joins the cast?
No!
What a bitch! You don't even have to act to play Cartier. You were typecast, Jess!
I know.
Now be gone with you!
This is what it's like backstage, really.
At the beginning of the third year, having bought out Toke, Cartier not only ditched the veggies and added large slabs of meat. It is fun to say.
I know, large slabs.
To the menu, but she publicly trashed Toke, America's best-loved vegetarian chef, on CNN. Consequently, Cartier's many restaurants were picketed en masse by vegetarians.
Yes.
They're official.
Buff joined the picket line dressed as a cow carrying a sign that said, "Please don't eat me." It's amazing how real life works its way into the script. You'd be shocked at how often real life works its way into this.
Just
Anyway.
keep reading.
The media and paparazzi followed Cartier, exposing her wicked side. She was labeled the most hated woman in America.
Chanel finally decided to have a baby, but Larson was unable to accommodate her because his father, Graham, had moved in. Larson's mother, Magenta, arrived in an attempt to save her marriage. Magenta was played by Brooklyn Schaefer.
Graham admitted to having had an affair for 10 years with a blow-up doll named Lexi. Because of Dior's insight, Magenta agreed to open a consignment shop to sell the items she hoarded. Graham agreed to get rid of Lexi. Happy ending, right? Not so much! Larson's inability to make love to Chanel worsened because both of his parents were staying with him.
Buff no longer remembered that he and Chanel had been married. But because Chanel was such a wonderful person, he fell in love with her. Marlowe walked in as Buff kissed Chanel.
Oh, that's magic.
Desperate.
That's acting right there.
Desperate to have a baby.
Yeah.
Chanel was frustrated with Larson, whose magic wand stopped working its magic. Larson admitted to Chanel that as a youth, he was turned on when his mother spanked him. In desperation, Chanel spanked Larson.
This was my favorite of all the storylines.
Amazing.
I would say no.
He was so uncomfortable.
This is not.
Success! Unfortunately, the Startled family entered in time to witness this momentous event.
That's me. That's giving me insight. My heart is that.
My heart is
Scoot McCreighton, one of Chanel's ex-husbands, appeared. Scoot McCreighton was played by Todd Schaefer, having lost his penis in a law firm accident. He was in the process of transgendering.
Fantastic.
Classy storyline.
Scoot expressed
Something for the kids.
Scoot expressed his undying love for Chanel and attempted to convince her to leave Larson and become a lesbian so they could rekindle their love. Chanel refused.
Oh, wow. Buff also expressed his love for Chanel and begged her to spank him. This went on for so long. Anyway, his request was triggered after witnessing Chanel spank Larson, which turned Buff on.
That actually has nothing to do with the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks very personal.
Yes.
Lois indicated that her sex life with Lil Marlowe now included spanking. We were on a roll. Chanel was dismayed. However, her best friend, Lady Kiki Cambridge, convinced Chanel that spanking was no longer considered kinky. For old people?
Old people. Cartier had been kidnapped. The ransom requested was $50 million. Superhero Private Dick Marlowe Phillips and his new sidekick, Super Homo Crispy Aspole, to the rescue. Cartier fired Crispy, so Marlowe hired him as a private dick in training. Marlowe and Crispy determined that Cartier plotted her own kidnapping and was holed up in a suite at the Windsor Court Hotel.
Oh, goodness. It's me. Buff was not the least bit surprised by Cartier's antics. Did she really think that Buff would pay the ransom? Surely. That's it, surely not, but it doesn't. Shortly after Cartier's failed attempt to increase her own wealth with the ransom money, she made a decision. And elated Cartier announced that she sold her Divine restaurants to Larson's brother, much beloved vegetarian chef Toke.
Toke immediately removed.
Restaurant.
Yes, it's a restaurant. Toke immediately removed the meat from all the menus and restored the restaurants to gourmet vegetarian cuisine. Cartier was homicidal when Toke changed the name of the restaurants from Divine to Divine Karma.
Yes.
Juliet appeared, needing her Aunt Chanel's wisdom and love. Cartier had a hissy fit when Juliet announced the day before that she had married sexy Latin lover movie star Ronaldo Santino in a drive-by chapel in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, Ronaldo spent their wedding night gambling with Antonio Banderas. Trust me. Due to his absence on their wedding night, Juliet wanted a divorce, which thrilled Cartier. Cartier currently disliked Ronaldo because he wasn't nominated for Academy Awards, so she had lost her bragging rights. Cartier was mortified that the paparazzi took photos of Juliet and Ronaldo's wedding for the tabloids. However, Cartier was hit by a bolt of lightning when Ronaldo appeared, made Juliet take off her coat, revealing that Juliet was 7 months prego.
Buff was ecstatic about the news, but Cartier had no desire to be a grandmother. Much to the family's surprise, the emotionally estranged Cartier and Buff reconciled. Go figure. No.
Oh. Lois's newfound sexual experimentation led to her handcuffing a naked Marlowe to the top step in the deep end of Chanel's pool. Then, accidentally dropping the handcuff key into the pool. Larson saved the day before Lil Marlowe drowned.
A visit was paid by Mr. Mallory, who stressed to Cartier that if she didn't accept Juliet and Romeo's marriage and act like a loving grandmother to their baby, he'd spill the beans on how Juliet was conceived via his life. via his life-giving juice and the use of a turkey baster. Life-giving juice. Mr. Mallory vowed to also announce that Juliet's twin, Romeo's father, could be one of 27 men. Reluctantly, Cartier acquiesced to his demands.
Dior spent her young life being adored by the entire family, with the exception of Cartier. Dior suffered from stunted growth due to being psychologically stifled by Cartier.
It was so dull.
But once Dior understood that her mother was the cause of her failure to grow, overnight she sprouted legs and grew to the size of a normal teen. Determined to be unique and hopefully piss Cartier off, Dior expressed her individuality by wearing goth garb. I did too.
That was a good episode.
Because in real Are we done? All right. Because in real life I got pregnant, Chanel announced to the Debauchery family that she was pregnant. Larson was ecstatic, however, Buff was distressed when he realized that his one-night stand with Chanel could have resulted in her pregnancy. Oh, I failed to mention that Chanel and Buff did indeed one night approximately 2 months before her announcement. Well, they did. So Chanel, overwhelmed with guilt, had no idea if Larson or Buff was her baby daddy. I'm upset!
It's all about the eyebrows. It's where the eyebrows are.
Yeah.
Or the hands.
Lois and Marlowe had a pre-Mardi Gras costume housewarming party in their newly renovated mansion that they named Happily Ever After. The irony, this is not in the script, the irony is that dress belonged to him. Besides the immediate family, Aunt Mitzi drove all the way from the parish to attend. Crispy Ashpole also attended. A great time was had by all, right? Get real. As always, chaos ensued. Whoa. I think I see his Ashpole.
Don't judge me.
I don't know what he said, but Aunt Minty is Tracy Collins, the wonderful.
And she was dressed as Dolly Parton.
That's why she was dressed as Tracy Collins.
Being a private dick, Marlowe had secret panels incorporated into the house design. While spying through one of the panels, he discovered that Chanel didn't know whether Larson or Buff impregnated her.
That's my bum.
We have matching pajamas like that.
Frightening.
He also learned that Larson and Cartier previously had an affair. It became evident that Cartier planned to seduce Larson again, but Larson was having no part of it. Marlowe secured more knowledge than he bargained for, but he didn't know what to do about it, about what he witnessed. What a conundrum.
Romeo announced that he and his former lover, Ralph, had reunited and were legally married in New York. Cartier was beside herself. Ralph was played by Brad Caldwell. 2 years prior, Romeo and Ralph were to be married, but Cartier paid Ralph $3 million to disappear. In front of the family, Ralph returned the $3 million check to Cartier. Because he didn't cash it, Ralph was not bound to his confidentiality agreement with Cartier.
Via letter.
What's it up, Faye?
Via letter to Cartier, Mr. Mallory threatened to disclose to the family that he is Juliet's father and that Romeo's father could be one of 27 men if Cartier did not accept Romeo's marriage to Ralph. Cartier swallowed her pride. Okay. Cartier swallowed her pride and acted like a loving mother until Romeo announced that he and Ralph planned to move to New Orleans and open a tranny bar with a high-class drag show in the French Quarter, not unlike the old My Oh My Club. Needless to say, Cartier went postal!
Oh, Mid-City Theater owner Fred Muccio asked if the Debauchery family would consider doing a cabaret for Mid-City Theater's March Cabaret Month. We were all excited to strut our stuff vocally. So on March 13th, 2013...
We were all excited?
I know. Jess was not happy.
Not excited.
She did great.
She's back.
Really good. All right. We were all excited to start our stuff, except for Jess. And so on March 13th, 2013, the first Debauchery Cabaret was performed. The family was accompanied by the very talented Harry Miron Jr.
The family met quirky Monet Sterling, a rugged individualist and former secret agent, who Marlowe hired to oversee the security of Larson and Buff's companies. Monet Sterling was played by Jen Lindsley. Lois was appalled to find out that Monet did not believe in wearing underwear. Matters got worse when Lois discovered that Larson and Buff wasn't wearing no drawers neither. Only irony.
The mystery the mystery of the paternity of Chanel's baby was revealed. The sonogram reflected that the baby looked exactly like her husband, Larson. Chanel appeared to be in labor.
I still have that on my fridge, by the way.
Sonogram?
On my fridge, yeah.
All right. Cartier, that's still me. Okay. Cartier abandoned her sister by immediately leaving for a day of beauty at her spa. Lois got hysterical while Marlowe tried to unruffle her. Buff wanted no part of delivering a baby. Larson felt faint and was no help at all.
No comment.
Monet Sterling took charge. Monet offered to drive Chanel to the hospital while the family was busy devouring a lemon dobash cake in the kitchen to calm their nerves. But it was a false alarm. Peter Studley returned. Peter. That's happening. He easily seduced Cartier, Bernstein, Taffeta, international supermodel, and even Monet Sterling, who thought she was immune to Peter Studley's sex appeal. Evidently not.
Oh shit, it's me. Lois suffered from taking too much sleep medication and mistook an electric toothbrush for a pregnancy kit. I love that episode. That was fun. In an attempt to find out if she was pregnant, it started vibrating. Her doctor confirmed that Lois was definitely not pregnant and didn't have any cavities. But informed her that she was going through the menopause. Many, not Manny, because I'm a man.
Larson called and indicated that because he had a flat tire in the interstate on the way to the hospital, he delivered Chanel and his baby in the back seat of the Rolls. Poor Larson passed out before disclosing the sex of the baby. By the way, it was a boy.
Much to the irritation of Cartier, Dior returned after earning an undergraduate and master's degree from NYU in theater. However, Dior didn't return alone. Her lover, Gatsby, did not impress Cartier until she discovered that he was an award-winning director. Gatsby was played by Nick Sly. Cartier bought a sex boutique she named Afterglow and planned to open many more. Cartier asked Taffeta, international supermodel, to be the face of sex in the Afterglow commercials. Taffeta was not the least bit sensual during her rehearsal. Terrible. Gatsby took over directing the commercial and was able to get Taffeta in the mood by kissing her. Dior didn't like Gatsby's method of getting a good performance out of Taffeta.
To surprise Marlowe, Lois had a makeover for their first anniversary. But the biggest surprise was Marlowe's announcement that he had a fully stocked chicken coop built so Lois could feel like she was waking up each morning in Debauchery. Unfortunately for Cartier, Lois and Marlowe live in the mansion next door to hers. God,
I hate to interrupt. However, it seems to me that I should be out here.
But you were the last immediate family member to join the cast, so I'm afraid you can't be introduced yet.
Kyle's right, we're going in the sequence in which the family joined the cast.
Well, who made that stupid rule?
I did. Now cool your jets and get your ass backstage.
Apparently, life imitates art. I would like it to be noted that you're being extremely unfair. You suck, Jess.
I know.
July 17th, 2013 was Debauchery's 3rd anniversary episode, immediately followed by a party. In this episode, Chanel and Larson's son first appeared. So Sean wasn't alone.
Right.
Okay.
That-
Hi,
That's what that is when you rehearse it.
I'm Joe Siebert, who plays Tobias Grant, affectionately known as Toby. Because children in Debauchery age at the rate of a year a month until they're 20, Toby was 3 years old in this episode. What an adorable toddler. Am I right?
Chanel hosted a pool party for family and friends, however, things did not go as planned. It became apparent that getting these people together was not a good idea. Many arguments ensued, causing Chanel unwelcome stress. I would just like to point out that I had just given birth a couple of weeks beforehand, and everyone is wearing a bikini, and I look like Grimace from the Ronald McDonald commercial.
Grimace's boobs were never that sexy. Just saying.
To add insult to
We
injury.
killed it.
To add further insult to injury. Larson got drunk, stripped naked, and went skinny dipping. And Chanel's best friend, Lady Kiki Cambridge, joined him. It was perfectly innocent. Really? Nothing happened! I'm just looking at the audience right now. After striking out with Larson, Kiki set her sights on pool boy Stallion, played by Chris Ramage. A funny story. So it says, the audience has become used to Larson mispronouncing words. When he was discussing Stallion, Larson described him as the shitless pool boy. However, that was not a Larsonism. Small bit of trivia. It was a typo in the script. I love you, Pat. Having split with Toke Taffeta, international supermodel, was on the prowl again. She too set her sights on Stallion.
Kiki and Scoot had an instant attraction, so Kiki took a swim in the lady pool. Sort of, kind of. Much to everyone's surprise, Burnsy and Monet became an item. Buff certainly didn't see that coming, but he loved the fantasies it created. I mean, come on.
Chanel was embarrassed that her recently reconciled in-laws, Magenta and Graham, were subjected to their inebriated son and her morally loose friends.
And Toby related his observations of the horrific event and questioned adults' obsession with sex, despite the fact that Toby had no idea what sex was at the time. Toby was grateful that he had his great-grandmother Lois and her husband Marlowe, as stabilizing forces in his young life. Lois loves Toby hard. Oh yeah.
And that ended Debauchery's 3rd year. Again, much happened to the cast in the soap and in real life. In the fall of 2012, I earned a degree in interdisciplinary studies with concentrations in business and urban studies. Only took 17 years.
Juliet Devine and Ronaldo Santino are real-life husband and wife, and on December 26, 2012, Ashley and Michael Santos welcomed their first son, Clark Santos.
Despite the fact that she played my daughter Dior in Debauchery, this was before knew each other before the dog. On April 19th, you know the date. April 19th, 2013, I asked my real-life love, Robin Boudier, to marry me.
I said yes.
On May 14, 2013, I gave birth to the absolutely perfect Alexander Michael.
No pressure.
Not so perfect at 4 a.m. And as the photo reflects, obviously, like father, like son.
That was the day we got home from the
That was the
hospital.
day we got home from the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I cried for like an hour after I took that home.
Oh boy. Good God. Yeah, no kidding. No, Alex wasn't delivered in the backseat of our Rolls. Duh. Mandy and I don't own a Rolls. Oh.
At the beginning of Debauchery's 4th year, Chanel and Larson went to a relaxing retreat in Hawaii in hope of restoring Larson's excessive testosterone, which evaporated after he delivered Toby.
Yeah, it happens.
Lady Kiki Cambridge unsuccessfully attempted to seduce Buff.
Wow.
Well, I take a while to realize things. It's a slow process.
Cartier was filming yet another commercial for her sex boutique Afterglow, starring Taffeta, international supermodel, and directed by Dior's lover Gatsby. After pitching a hissy fit when Taffeta decided to film the commercial in the nude, Dior was thrown out of the studios.
Marlowe told Dior to make Gatsby jealous. Buff offered to pay shirtless pool boy Stallion $10,000 to act as if he was doing Dior. Being rather naive, Buff didn't anticipate that Stallion would actually do Dior.
But Stallion certainly did. From Dior's limited knowledge, Stallion was an enthusiastic yet satisfying lover. Shortly after experiencing Stallion, Dior decided to explore her sexuality with multiple partners, most of whom did not live up to her expectations. When Gatsby left town to direct an indie movie, Dior took the opportunity to play a little bit of catch-up. After Stallion, right there, Stallion, he busted my lip on stage, y'all. The passionate making out. After Stallion,
Underneath this shirt, I look. There's no problem.
after Stallion, Dior seduced her personal trainer, who didn't live up to his height. Her high school acting teacher, who very badly quoted Shakespeare during foreplay. And the bartender who fell asleep during the act. That's okay too. So far, passionate Gatsby and athletic Stallion were the best.
Larson and Buff had a new business associate, Hugh Jackman. Don't get excited. Not the Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman is played by Sean Patterson! I said Hugh Jackman is played by Sean Patterson!
Keep going.
The real Hugh Jackman would never be late on an entrance. Hugh Jackman is played by Sean Patterson!
Were you calling me?
Where the hell were you?
And
endlessly waiting for no apparent reason wears me out, I took a nap.
Unbelievable!
Well, now's your time to shine. Go for it!
Fine. When Larson and Buff introduced Hugh Jackman to the family, Hugh realized that he'd had an affair with Cartier, who he knew as Simone. Of course, evil, despicable, conniving Cartier denied it.
Look at it tonight.
It's confusing.
It
You're
is
the
very
G one.
confusing.
Right, you're the
That
G
is
one.
very okay. Jax Larson walked in on Cartier's and Hugh's conversation as Cartier admitted to her affair with Hugh Jackman.
Just to be clear, not the Hugh Jackman.
We get it, right?
I should
Not that angle.
Larson was shocked to discover that Dior could be Hugh's daughter, even though Cartier led Larson to believe that he was Dior's father.
When Hugh Jackman realized that he was now a member of a live soap opera, he overacted worse than Ronnie Lamar from Araby Park. Who gets his news with a twist?
Chanel
It's so distracting.
Chanel dreamed that the family appeared on her mother's TV show, Intercourse with Lois. Actually, it was a nightmare, because Lois pushed until the family secrets were exposed. When Chanel woke up, some of her horrible dream became a reality. Mistress of Disguise, Monet Sterling, caught a man casing Lois and Marlowe's mansion, then brought him to Chanel and Larson's house in handcuffs.
The perp turned out to be Marlowe's criminally oriented brother, Dash, who was played by Wayne Daggerpont, fondly known as Uncle Wayne. Non-politically correct Dash almost came to an unfortunate end when he made the huge mistake of calling the Debauchery family women broads.
Hugh Jackman and Cartier were together in New York, supposedly on business. Hugh was forcing Cartier to continue their affair by blackmailing her. He threatened to spill the beans to her husband Buck if she stopped seeing him.
And Mitzi paid an unexpected visit to tell the family of her electrifying experience at Mardi Gras in New Orleans when she was 16. Aunt Mitzi met a hippie named Freedom, who introduced her to marijuana, alcohol, and sex in the backseat of his Volkswagen Buck. She never saw the love of her life, Freedom, again, and she confessed, as a result of her exciting Mardi Gras day 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby boy who her mama made her give up for adoption.
Aunt Mitzi asked Marlowe to find her baby, and he did. Her long-lost son's name was Michael Schlenker, who has been a member of the Debauchery audience since its inception.
2 weeks before Christmas, Chanel was in a funk because her sex life was again in shambles. Larson hadn't touched her since she gave birth to Toby, and of course, Cartier's condescending attitude didn't help matters. My favorite outfit. To add to her despair, Toby refused to let her know what he told Santa what he wanted for Christmas.
Well, Santa's the only one that counts. Am I Toby in this line?
No,
you.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Santa's the only one that counts.
It's so subtle. What threw Chanel into a deeper depression, Cartier invited Hugh Jackman's ex-wife, Pepper Jackman was played by Cammie West.
Pepper and Cartier could be twins in that they're both so devious, conniving, and love to play on others' vulnerabilities. After Cartier and Pepper verbally annihilated each member of the family, Larson blew his gasket and threw Cartier and Pepper out of the house. Wow.
Yes, to me. Larson discussed his loss of his excessive testosterone with Hugh Jackman, who related that since Chanel gave birth, Larson had placed Chanel in the same category as his sainted mother, Magenta.
I can see the resemblance.
Hugh indicated that Larson must take Chanel off of the mother pedestal and view her as his beautiful, sexy wife. It worked. Larson's magic wand sparked back into action, which resulted in a very happy holiday season for Chanel.
See, there's lots of them.
Juliet, her husband, Latin movie star Ronaldo Smith, and the love of Ronaldo's life. Smith. That's how you spell Smith. Santino. In case of the Larsons. Ronaldo Santino and the love of Ronaldo's life, his adorable dog Chi-Chi, became for a visit. There we go. How can I possibly forget? Juliet and Ronaldo's 13-year-old son, Julio, was with them. Julio was played by Mike Harkin. I did forget about that. Wow. Ronaldo was filming American Horror Story Coven as Jessica Lange's love interest. Due to Juliet's jealousy, she planned to keep a very short leash on Ronaldo.
Ronaldo accused Hugh Jackman, of being an imposter until he was made to understand that Hugh shared the name with the Hugh Jackman. That's the angle.
It never gets old.
Kind of, if you squint.
And a standing in Chalmette.
Go check. Anyway, Ronaldo attempted to teach you how to smoothly pick up women without much success.
That was.
You know, you think you do something funny and it's just like gonna last for a second. And then it haunts you the rest of your life.
In a robe holding a teddy bear. How do you think that's
Oh boy. And Marlo discovered Julio attempting to download a website called Hooters Ain't Got Nothing on Us on Toby's iPad. The family was appalled. Wise Grandpa Buff's solution to Julio's obsession with women's breasts was to have Julio live with hateful Cartier, a fate worse than death. Horrified, Julio was instantly cured of his love of downloading photos of bodacious tatas for the time being.
Now, Lois's friends from the parish met to plan a new Mardi Gras parade. Bambi insisted that the food they ordered be glutton-free.
Ain't that how you say it, glutton-free? I played Bambi.
No, you played Chris.
No, that was the first. I was
Oh,
Bambi.
he knows who he plays.
I know who I'm playing.
Big-haired Italian Sophia believes that garlic cures anything that ails you.
Yeah, you're right. No, you didn't wear it. I played Sophia.
And Crystal would rather cut her tongue out with a rusty butter knife than hurt anyone's feelings.
Brief story. My mother in California is on Southern Rep's mailing list and received this internet pops a few days ago and gave me a call. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Now for the voice.
Oh, please.
truck to decorate as floats. Cartier's mortification increased when WWL TV reporter Bethany Balducci appeared and intended to document the creation of the new Mardi Gras parade from its inception.
Oh, sorry. Bethany has a nose for news. Now that Angela Hill retired, Bethany was clawing her way to the top at WWL TV, and I played the bodacious Bethany. Love her.
Joe spent more time looking in the mirror once he got that True story.
Cartier became livid when she discovered that her new best friend, Pepper Jackman, wanted to help the parade and ride on the Sophia Loren float. Cartier's blood pressure rose. Oh boy, that's too bad. When she discovered that Pepper's ex, Hugh Jackman, and Larson and Cartier's husband, Buff, were helping the ladies finance what was sure to be the worst Mardi Gras fiasco known to man.
I love that so much.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Again this year, Fred Nuccio asked the family to be a part of Mid-City Theater's Cabaret Month. The second annual Debauchery La Cabaret was performed on March 19th, 2014. The cast was accompanied again by the fabulous Harry Mayron Jr.
And this was another opportunity for Bethany to shine, and shine she did. What? The cabaret was hosted by none other than the gorgeous, sexy Bethany Balducci, played by Barla Jean Merman, eat your heart out.
The family was visited by Larson's lifelong friend, Bentley Heat, who invented an advanced surveillance system and became Larson and Buff's newest business associate. Bentley Heat was played by Jeffrey Roberson. The family embraced Bentley with open arms. Bentley's electronic brilliance is only surpassed by his sexual prowess. Hunky Bentley turned Chanel and Lois to mush. But when Cartier entered, Bentley called her Simone.
My uterus is still in. Because I used to work for Hobby Lobby. I'm sorry, Pat.
When Cartier entered, Bentley called her Simone, who was a woman he had a one-night stand with and has searched for ever since. When the family left to have coffee and cannolis, Larson forced Cartier to admit that she uses the name Simone when she's on the prowl.
During the period of time Cartier became pregnant with Dior, it came to light that she had had affairs with Larson, Bentley Heat, and Hugh Jackman, not the Hugh Jackman.
Oh, son of a bitch, Jess!
I just couldn't help it.
Observant Toby happened to mention that Bentley's red beard and the red roots of Dior's hair were an exact match. Not the least bit affected that Cartier bore his child, Bentley blackmailed Cartier into continuing their affair. Actually, Cartier was more than willing to continue the affair with sizzling hot Bentley Heat without being forced to. Right?
However, Cartier had enough of being blackmailed by Hugh Jackman, who was also forcing her to continue their affair. Cartier schemed to cause Hugh to focus his attention on her best friend, the irresistible Taffeta, international supermodel. And her scheme worked.
Yes, the family was visited by Chanel's new neighbor, world-renowned artist Passion Parker, played by Brittany James. Because of Cartier's horrid treatment of her daughter Dior, Passion took Cartier to task. When Cartier attempted to throw Passion out of the house, Larson threw despicable Cartier out instead.
When Toby turned 13, he transformed from Chanel's sweet son into a teen from hell. In the midst of the Toby chaos, a giddy Aunt Mitzi unexpectedly paid a visit with her boy toy, Rockwell Van Horn, known to his friends as Rocky, who was played by Bob Eves Jr. Rocky was a long-winded, has-been Broadway star who was currently directing an extremely low-budget movie in the parish called Redneck Zombie Vampires.
I would see that. Is the thing. Is I would
Vampires
watch
with no teeth. I mean, that's his style.
It's young yet.
Marlowe discovered that Chanel's Visa card had been stolen and a ton of electronic equipment purchased. After watching security video at the stores where the purchases had been made, it was determined that Toby was the culprit.
But then Toby rushed in with a wild story about how he'd been kidnapped and locked in the attic by a friend named Yoda, who was Toby's doppelganger, in a story ripped from the headlines of Marlowe found Yoda in the kitchen, so he verified Toby's story. Yoda apologized for the theft, but explained that he and his mother were desperate, living in their car. This isn't funny, I'm sorry. He sold the equipment in order to pay for an apartment. And by the way, I played Yoda as well.
We need the next picture.
The family rallied to help Yoda. Marlowe offered his guest house to Yoda and his mother. Inspired, Rocky planned to approach Lifetime about doing a movie of the incident in which Yoda would have a down in his luck father played by Rocky instead of a mother. Rocky vowed to give up directing in order to become a famous television star.
And Toby grew legs.
Toby has learned so much in 14 months. He's come to realize that this family may be screwed up, but they're filled with love. Well, all but Cartier, who lives in a perpetual state of superiority and annoyance. She is a narcissistic bitch who loves to create havoc.
Is that supposed to be an insult?
No.
And that's what happened to the Debauchery family during our 4th year. And this is what happened to some members of the cast in real life.
In May of 2014, I completed my MFA in creative writing with an emphasis in fiction at UNO. While there, I was associate editor of Bayou Magazine.
On May 14th, 2014, Matt, my son Alex, and I celebrated his first birthday.
In just a few, I gotta remember that. In just a few days, my daughter Vivian will be 3. Thanks
Note
for the
to
reminder.
self.
Thank goodness she hasn't grown up in soap opera years, or she will be in her 20s.
This hasn't actually happened yet. Well, it kind of has. Let's just say it's in the works. My real-life wife, Cammie West, who plays my ex-wife, Brent Jackman, is expecting our first child in November. And it's a boy.
Name him Jackman.
No.
Now, for those of you who attend Debauchery regularly, I'm sure that you've noticed that family members are missing periodically. Contrary to what the family has told you, we don't actually live in this soap opera. We're actors, and some of us are also directors, so we're usually missing in action because we're rehearsing for another local production.
But we always come back to Debauchery. True, we're actors and directors, but we all have day jobs too. For instance, I teach theater arts at Ursuline Academy and direct their theater productions.
And I am education director for the NOLA project and an arts coach at Kidsmart.
I'm a talented theater teacher, and I directed productions at Destrehan High School.
I teach and direct theater at Tulane University and direct the Patchwork Players.
sales manager with PSAV at the Hilton Riverside.
I work
no,
at McCoy
yes,
Dental Laboratory making fake teeth.
I teach theater at Country Day and direct its productions.
And I'm a senior attorney for the Social Security Administration.
And I teach theater with Community Works at the International School of Louisiana with, well, it's Community Works, not Young Audience. Oh, and Young Audiences in Gramercy. I forgot I did that too. Oh, and I own a framing company called Frame by Kyle. So if you need any framing done, give me a call.
Debauchery would not be possible without a lot of help from our friends. We'd forever be grateful, we'll be forever grateful to Barbara Motley, Emma Hayes, Fred Muccio, Sue Gonzi, all who had faith in this bizarre concept of a soap opera.
We'd also like to thank our former directors, Mark Routhier and Bo Bratcher, in addition to the many tech people who have worked with us through the past 4 years, and our bartender extraordinaire, Miss Kyra.
The most important person.
Exactly.
We would be remiss if we didn't express our appreciation to May Hayes for not only producing Debauchery from inception, but for being Debauchery's opening and closing voice. And I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but was it last month or the month before? She was out of town. Last month, she was out of town. So she Skyped in the opening introduction and the closing of the show. It was great.
And we'd like to give a big shout out to you, our amazing audience. We'd applaud you, but we're holding our scripts. Ha 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 ha. So give me some big hands.
Wait, I have a scripted announcement to make. The August episode of Debauchery will be Larson's last. I have been accepted into a program for a master's degree at the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
He's dumb.
I am going to, Pat, I see why you emailed me. My concentration will be on the arts and education, and my research focus will be on school leadership and strategic planning for best practices in school-wide arts implementation.
To quote Lois, God in heaven, Sean, you must be smart or something. Yeah.
What is Chanel going to do without Larson?
I suspect that Chanel will find something to occupy her in Larson's absence. Just so you know, I refuse to be killed off. Larson will return.
You still have a line.
I know. Got it.
We hear you loud and clear, Sean. Yes. In no way Larson will be killed off. That's a promise, everybody, from the deepest part of our souls. We will miss you, Sean Glazebrook, but we'll see you in the August episode before you depart. You have all just experienced Debauchery from its inception through the present, but what's in store for the soap opera family in the future? How will Chanel cope without Larson? Will Toby suffer from teen anxiety and having his brain go on fire? Will Cartier continue to make life miserable for the whole family? And yes, I know. And will Buff dump hateful Cartier and find a really nice woman to love? Maybe. And will Dior realize how very much she's like her mother? Will Lois and Marlowe continue to have a beautiful marriage despite the secrets Marlowe knows about Lois's family? Will they ever let me out of this freaking booth? Please, Pat, please! And finally, will we ever tire of mentioning that Hugh Jackman is not the Hugh Jackman? To find out the answers to these questions over time, please continue joining us once a month for Debauchery, and don't forget, during our August 6th episode of Debauchery, we'll experience Larson-isms for the last time for a while. I know, we will weep and gnash our teeth together. And now, come celebrate the start of Debauchery's 5th year. Let's party, and thank you for joining us for Debauchery! One more thing.
Before you all go, we would be remiss if we did not mention that none of this would be possible without the wonderful Pat Bourgeois.